What up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back here. It is episode 64 of the Friday Night Movie Club, and I got my good buddy Rick Aragon joining us once again. And we're going to do a live movie night and discussion on the 1993 film Menace to Society, a movie that Rick has never seen before. So there's going to be a lot of elements in this movie that Rick is going to have absolutely no concept of whatsoever, and it's going to be a great night just based on that alone. So before we start getting into things, how you doing tonight, Rick?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I've been working on more reviews, trying to catch up with all the screeners that I get at the end of the year, and it's exhausting. I find it hard to watch 2 or 3 movies in a day. I don't know how our dear friend Roberto can do it like regularly.
Yeah. Well, Rob is in fact joining us on our Rumble page right now. So he's saying that first great movie night. Menace to Society is a great film. We'll see about that later tonight. Do I still have like 7 films on my list that I gotta catch up on? And now it's getting serious because we're at the final month of the year next month. So I have to watch all these movies for the end of the year. That way we can be prepared for our best and worst of the year show that's coming up later this year. So that's going to be a whole other situation in and of itself. But yeah, so it's time for me to get into gear. I'm probably going to be short of 100 movies this year when it's all said and done, though. Like with the 7 that I have to catch up on, plus the remaining of the year, I'll probably be just below the 100 mark on 2023. Now, keep in mind, not really my fault. I mean, Hollywood did move a whole bunch of their movies that were supposed to be released this year over to 2024. So, I mean, if the movies that came out as scheduled, I've probably been over 100, but it looks like I'm going to be just a little bit short this year, which would be a down pace based on where I was at 2022. What do you feel about this year so far? We still got a month to go, but do you feel like this year is better than last year or worse than last year or about the same? Like, what was kind of your vibe of 2023 as far as film goes?
I want to say maybe slightly better. We have gotten some good films like Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon. So it hasn't been all bad by any stretch. And my disappointment, though, that Dune Part 2 was not released. They decided to wait until next year, which I think is a mistake. It was a mistake, especially given how Marvel or the Marvels did not do so well. I think
Yeah.
Dune would have crushed the Marvels. But that's a terrible disappointment for me because I was really looking forward to it.
Well, it worked out well for well, I guess you could say on paper it would have worked out well for Marvel because you think that well now we don't have to go up against Doom Part 2, we might actually make some money, and then it's like nope, that didn't happen either. So it's like oh well, I guess it's all the shit. So
And then think about it. This year we saw the release of like two or three of the greatest films ever made. Across the Spider-Verse, Barbie, Joyride, all of these brilliant A+ films,
Yeah.
at least so declared by his generation's Roger Ebert.
Rob says that he's cracking 7 movies a day on the weekends, but he says that as far as movies that are released so far this year, he's barely going to crack about 60 or 70. Yeah, I have to do a quick tally on how many I've seen that have been released this year. It couldn't possibly have been that much as far as my numbers go. But one movie I guess we did watch earlier today, I guess we both saw this one, so you can call this an impromptu review of this film, is the film Napoleon. And I ended up watching this film because I saw a commercial for it, and my general reaction was, well, there's nothing else going on today, and I'm not at work, so I don't have to work, so I might as well watch this movie because it's out there. So I did, and I immediately hated my decision to watch this film. Um, I guess the biggest thing with me in this movie, if you guys don't know, this is the Joaquin Phoenix, Vanessa Kirby period piece film. It's supposed to be about the life of Napoleon. And I think when you get into like maybe the first 10-15 minutes of the movie, it sets the stage. It says this is going to be like some kind of like war epic, sort of like if you remember a film a couple of years ago, like what was it, Dunkirk and 1917. So you thought that it was going to be kind of on one of those same lines of like that one, except for it's going to be based more on France than on England. But I'm watching this film here. It's like after the first 15 minutes, it basically just becomes like an hour about him moping about, his wife who is cheating on him and doesn't really love him and can't give him a son. And I think to myself, is this like a period piece, or is this like a war drama, or is this like a romantic like schlock fest? Like what exactly like is this movie? And it's like the whole first 15 minutes of the film does not set you for the pace of what you're actually going to get for like the remaining 2.5 hours this movie is, because this is another 2 hour 40-minute film, because of course every movie this time of year has to be almost 3 hours long. I mean, they really have to make you feel the runtime here with these movies. So I don't know, I just wasn't very impressed by this film. There's definitely parts of it that I liked, but then there's like a lot of stuff that's like you could just cut this out entirely, because I honestly really don't care that much. Do you think I'm being too harsh on this movie? What was your take on Napoleon?
I think you're being slightly harsh. I do agree that maybe it is longer than it should be, but I have a weak spot for period films and costume dramas, and it did give you some great battle scenes like Austerlitz or Waterloo. So those were good. Those were impressive. The um the love story, well, you got to see Napoleon cry a lot, like when he's divorcing Josephine, and when he's courting Josephine. And there were a couple of times when the audience was actually laughing. Like I wrote down some of the
Yeah,
lines,
I had that too.
like Destiny when he when she's complaining about how he's overweight. Destiny has brought me here. Destiny has brought me this lamb chop. The audience just burst out laughing.
As I said, that there's times where it's like, is it supposed to be a comedy? Because, like I said, the audience was laughing at my theater at certain points of the movie, but it's like I wasn't sure if they were supposed to be laughing or they just were because the lines were so over the top that just the delivery made people laugh. Like it was very hard to gauge like what this movie it was basically.
Yeah, well, like earlier in that, I think it was in that same scene where he says that, you will produce an heir tonight, or we're getting a divorce. I mean, these
Hmm.
sort of things are I hope intentionally funny, but because otherwise they just sound really bizarre. But
Like
there were
you
some,
better get pregnant tonight or we're done. It's like,
yeah,
well, I think it takes a little longer than that to, you're not just gonna be like, oh, I'm pregnant like immediately. That's not usually how it works.
and given Napoleon's method of impregnating Josephine, I would say he's doing it wrong. Or I'll just try to say it that way.
Yeah. Well, I think that was kind of like the running gag throughout the entire thing. Is that clearly he's not very good in the bedroom because
Yes.
he didn't look like she didn't look like she was enjoying one scene where they were actually having sex together throughout the entire movie.
No, but it did kind of seem that it was going off into this great romance, and then, oh wait, we've got wars to fight, and we've got battles to take place. One thing that I did like at the Battle of Waterloo, I was actually impressed by Rupert Everett as the Duke of Wellington, and I was thinking, why do we not have a Duke of Wellington biopic?
Because I mean, how many people really wanted to go see a Napoleon movie? I mean, you gotta throw that out there too, I guess, right?
Well, I mean, Napoleon, that's a well-known figure of history. I
Yeah, but I
think,
mean, here's the thing: it's very hard to really sell these type of like period pieces to a general audience because unless it's like a big over the top like action film, I think. I'm trying to gauge like what did Dunkirk in was it 1917 do as far as his box office results go, because those are like two of the bigger examples that I can remember, and one of them was Christopher Nolan, so obviously that got a little bit of a pop just being based off of him alone. I think that one did about 570 on the box office with that and its Oscar run and whatnot. But the other one is what 1917. I think
mhm.
that one was probably about I'd say like 200 million less than that one as well. So
Well, not a lot of people remember World War I, and I'm not saying that, since everyone who fought in it was probably dead by now,
hmm.
but it's a little more obscure. More people are familiar with World War II, even if we're facing the last
Well,
the generation that is on the verge of passing on, that remembers the war.
to be fair, I think the reason why everyone is more aware of World War II is because certain people will not allow us to forget World War II, to the fact that people don't even remember World War One anymore. People remember, yeah, that was a World War right before the whole thing with the Nazis. You can even say it was a prequel to that war. Um,
Well, yeah, it did unfortunately set up the circumstances for the rise of Nazism. I mean, go watch Cabaret and it'll explain it all. I
oh
do.
yeah.
The only thing about 1917, I was not overwhelmed with the idea that it was going to look like it was just one long continuous shot. But I remember that our dear friend Sarah absolutely loved that movie. She just adored it and thought it was like a turning point in cinematic history.
Well, I
She,
thought
she
it was one of my top five movies that year. So
yeah,
1917. Yeah.
yeah, it was good. But that whole aspect of trying to make it look like it was one long shot did not impress me as much as I think the film wanted to impress me with. And
Yeah.
then you also
For first of all, why do you think that the film wants to oppress you? Why do you think that the film cares about what you think? First of all, let's answer that question before we go any further with any of these other questions. And
because
second,
I'm the only major critic in El Paso, Texas, and if that doesn't hold some sway somewhere, I don't know what that says about America, sir.
by the exits of default, you are the only film critic in El Paso, Texas,
No,
right?
I believe there is someone else. I believe there's actually another film critic who is maybe more well known than I am, but
Jogger.
I can't. She's been in the business longer than I have, so we'll put it that way.
Rob says that Ridley Scott also explored a lot of these themes in the last duel, which I also hated. Yeah, I didn't like that movie at all. I did
Yeah,
not
which
care
is
for
strange.
that film.
I hate it. Well, I would say I hated, but I disliked the last duel. I don't understand why so many people thought it was great. I thought Ben Affleck was over the top. I was not impressed with the pacing. I thought it was like, just get to it. I don't
Mhm.
care. So I was not impressed with the last duel, and its love by my fellow reviewers is a permanent puzzle to me. But they obviously saw something I did not.
Rob also said Kubrick almost made a Napoleon movie. Yeah, right before he got killed for making that Illuminati movie that he did, and
He
then
died of natural causes. He died because he was
sure he
old.
did.
He
Sure
died
he
because
did.
he was old. And they
Mm.
also one there
What a mark.
there is a Napoleon film from like 1927, which is supposed to be 6 hours long, and you have to see it on a massive screen to capture the whole thing. I've always wanted to see that, and I don't know. There's probably been there have been other Napoleon films or Napoleon centric films, but I was disappointed that well, I guess because he was more insatiable than she was. And so we didn't get to hear "Not tonight, Josephine." It's kind of a catchphrase. No,
Yeah, but
you
she
guys don't
died.
know
She
it.
she was annoying. So, I will say this. Rob says that Dunkirk is a better movie than 1917. I can't argue too much about that. I mean, they're both really good movies. So, I mean, if you're going to give the filmmaking edge to Nolan, I understand that one. So, I won't argue too much there.
Yeah, I'm going to lean towards Dunkirk. I think it was better because it really did not focus on the the majors, the generals. It focused on the individual soldiers, including his generation's Gene Kelly, Harry Styles, who had a small part in that film, very small, like hardly
Yeah.
noticeable.
Well, hopefully he didn't have to sleep with his director like he had to do with Don't Worry, Darling. So, um, outside of that, let's give a quick shout out to Top Dog who's joining us right now on our YouTube side. Let's keep in mind we're going to be on YouTube for about another 20 minutes, and then we're going to hop over to Rumble and on Twitch as well. So I already dropped the links to both of those. So when you want to watch the actual movie, make sure you go on to Rumble and Twitch because that's where we'll watch the film here tonight. He has a question here. I think this is more from me than you. I don't think you know much about MTV or Nickelodeon shows, but do you have any Nickelodeon or MTV shows to give you to watch? Well, like I said, I've said this a few times before, but my era of Nickelodeon, I say MTV too, was really like 90s. It was more like late 80s, early to mid 90s era. That's pretty much like where I was. So if you're asking me for like Nickelodeon shows, the only few cartoons that I actually generally still like from that era are like Doug, Rocco, and Hey Arnold, which is pretty much the go-to for like everyone in that era. Outside of that one, I would say the live action shows were like Clarissa Explains It All, Alex Mack, Keenan and Kel are always the good ones, Cousin Skeeter. And if you want like old school like game shows, obviously you have to go with either Legends of the Hidden Temple or Guts as well. Or yeah, so
Oh, I love Legends of the Hidden Temple. That was my
I,
default show.
if I'm not mistaken, I think they have a channel on Pluto TV, if I'm not mistaken, that is basically doing like all like the old Nick game shows like at the moment. So if you want to check those out, go Pluto TV. It's a free app that you can watch all that old stuff on there too. So yeah, definitely check it out over there. As far as MTV goes, and I've said this like with time, the only MTV content that I really enjoyed from that era was more of like the music related stuff, like the Say What karaoke and like the TRL type of stuff. Like as far as like actual shows that came out of MTV, I mean, I watched some of the early '90s like Real World when that was out at the time. I watched like Celebrity Deathmatch, Daria at the time, but outside of that, it's like a lot of those shows don't really hold up too much. But I do have a little surprise for people who want some '90s MTV here later on the show. But that's pretty much me. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't think I really cared all that much about what was on MTV. Um, I can't really think of any original programs. I know I have friends who liked Daria, but I never got into it. And nothing, no love for Teen Mom.
No, no. I think by the time that MTV started going fully into like reality TV shows, when it was like the Osbournes, like Jessica Simpson, that was about the time that I was like, okay, this is over. I'm just gonna start watching ESPN all day.
Yeah, well, I do remember some of the Real World, and I was not too impressed with all of these people. I thought some of them were eventually just there to try to get famous, being on
Yeah.
that show. It wasn't real anymore. It wasn't real, and I never
Let's just
saw
get
the other shows.
a bunch of random people from all over the U.S. and put them in a house so they can drink and fight and have jobs. It's like
And have
okay,
sex. And
yeah,
have sex.
and that too.
Lots of sex.
Yeah,
Lots of all over
the
sex.
last Real World I watched was the first one that they actually did in San Diego because I was in San Diego at the time. So this had to have been like '03 or '04. But after that, I was like, I'm done with this. There's nothing
No,
to it.
and they had that. Then they had Road Rules, and they
I
had.
know I remember Road Rules, but I can't remember watching like a single like episode or season of that show. Like I remember the show, I just don't remember ever like truly watching it. So I have no idea like what the concept of that show was or how it worked versus like Real World. But it's like I remember them promoting it like all the time. So
Well, what I know that they spun off one of the real world people into doing some sort of like gym show, like an exercise program. Was it grinding? See, this was
Yeah,
way back, like the first season, the very first season.
it's like sure, why not?
Yeah. Well, I think it was a guy, and a lot of women loved him. So it's like, oh, he's very attractive. He's very built. So yeah, let's give him his own show. And then other people, I think we got some people from Fox News. I think one of them, Rachel. I think Rachel, the one that's always pregnant by her husband, who was also on like the road rules, or one of those extreme things.
I mean,
Duffy.
I know Kennedy is on Fox Business now, and she was like a former MTV VJ back when
Yeah,
they
she was
had
a
VJ.
VJ.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, the only VJs I know now are through the 80s on 8 on Sirius XM.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like the early 2000s VJ, so I remember like Caduce and Lala and those guys. But I mean, like I said, after that show died, none of their careers took off like at all. It was like the show died, their careers died. And I think, what's her name? Hillary Burton, who's married to the dude who plays Negan on The Walking Dead. I can't remember why his name's escaping me right now. But she's married to that guy. She's just become like a super insufferable like woke feminist over the last few years. So yeah, it's not
Well,
been great.
Carson Daly, I think, is the last one to have something of a career out after MTV.
Yeah, they didn't into it. Well,
He had a
Carson Daly, like as soon as he was done with TRL, he had like some late night show on NBC that nobody watched because it only came on at like 3 in the morning, and it was like, who the hell staying up at 3 in the morning to watch Carson Daly? And then for some reason, he just stayed around NBC for years, and he's still there to some capacity. So good for him, I guess.
didn't he host some sort of talent show? Not America's Got Talent, or one of those type of shows.
I think he might have. Like I said, it's been so long I can't even remember. Jeffrey D. Morgan is the guy's name. Rob corrected me there. And it says, yeah, the Miz was on Real World. I think he was on like the second New York one, if I'm not mistaken. So he was on one of those, and
See,
uh,
that's someone who went on that show to get famous, because if memory serves correct, he created the character of the Miz, and kind of to be to get publicity and get his way into wrestling, and he became very successful. Yeah,
I
I
mean,
can't.
he's even documented on the show saying that he created that character, the Miz, on the Real World show. Then he took it to pro wrestling, and it took him almost like 10 years after getting into pro wrestling to like finally get over to the point where people actually like receptive to him. Because a lot of people didn't like him for a long, long time until he finally paid his dues there. So
Yeah, and then we've got all those what is it, the Jersey Shore people. I really didn't know who any of them were. I didn't
no.
understand why people cared, and
So I'll say this about current MTV. Like I said, it seems like Jersey Shore was like that one last bastion of like relevance that MTV had like in the late 2000s, because for whatever reason that show was like a cultural hit with people. People like love that Jersey Shore stuff, and they've been trying to live off of that I guess that dynasty for like 10 years now. But every time I watch MTV now, the only show that they're ever showing is ridiculousness.
yeah,
And it's like, so for a few years I would like travel like to like Phoenix and LA and Vegas and Florida, and every time I get to my hotel room I turn it on MTV and they're showing ridiculousness, like hours upon hours of just ridiculousness, like from 24 hours every single weekend. I think to myself, wow, is there like nothing else on this network anymore except for this one show? They don't
well,
even play Jersey Shore this much.
they didn't the host and his bodyguard have a like a spin-off show where they got to do
Well, no,
wacky
no,
hijinks?
they had their own show before Ridiculousness. So,
Oh,
yeah, they had a show called like Rob and Big or something like that, and that was the show they had like several years before he went to Ridiculousness.
I don't understand. I don't understand the appeal. But what was it? Who was it?
It's basically an MTV version of America's Funniest Home Videos, except for people get hurt most of the time. So,
Oh, well, no, I don't get the appeal. I don't know who these people are. I know that I want to say the guy from Maroon 5 made a very good crack about when they had the Video Music Awards. He said it's the one day of the year where MTV pretends to actually care about music.
Yeah, that was years ago, and that was like that had to be almost like 20 years ago. So if you think about it like this, people were complaining about MTV not playing music videos back in like 2003. Can you only imagine how bad they realized it was going to get 20 years later?
Oh yeah, I mean that's why they spun it off into what is it MTV2, where it was
Yeah.
going to be
And then
more
not
music.
even on
And
MTV too. They don't even play music videos there anymore. So it's like the MTV when they like went full on to like reality shows, they used to have like this morning block from like 6 to like 10ish where they would play like some music videos. Then after a while, they just stopped doing that too. So it's like
yeah, I mean
okay,
people don't even probably don't even realize what music videos are anymore.
no.
So, but no, I'm old enough to actually remember them.
Remember when Fuse was supposed to be the new MTV? Then that died fairly quickly.
I still remember VH1.
Me too. The whole behind the music and all that good stuff. Yeah.
I think they had artist of the month, and I think one month it was Stevie Nicks. So that should tell you how long that was.
Yeah, way back in the day. Well, I
Hmm.
do have one other story here that I want to bring up before we actually get into our film here, and this has been the story, the big story, really for the last few days. This whole thing about the woke Scream franchise absolutely collapsing upon itself based on what's happened over the last few days. So on Tuesday, when we did the Barroom podcast, like literally hours before, Melissa Barbarera, whatever her name is, who cares if I'm pronouncing her name right? She it was announced that she had gotten fired as the lead actress of the Scream franchise because she had posted some social media posts on an Instagram account which were pro-Palestine. It was anti-Israel, and she basically said that Israel was committing genocide against Palestine and we need to stay in Palestine. Well, obviously the pro-Israel bosses of Hollywood, let's just call it that, got very very upset at Miss Melissa, and then she got fired as the lead of the new woke franchise. Keep in mind, they rebooted this entire franchise around her character. She's supposed to be the illegitimate daughter, Mexican daughter of Billy Loomis, who was the killer in the first Scream movie. Even though Billy Loomis was supposed to be with Sydney the whole time, somehow he slept with some Mexican girl and had a daughter, and now she's like a full blown serial killer, but she's a good serial killer. She can control her psychotic powers or whatever the case
Or
is.
she's a
So
Mexican Dexter. That's what you're saying.
essentially, right? So and then they rebooted the franchise. They put all these like woke diversity hires in with it and whatnot, and they're terrible movies. Like Scream 5 and Scream 6. Scream 5 was on my top 5 worst movies of the year. Scream 6 will probably be in my top 10 unless I see some other dog crap movies in the next like 30 days. So they're not.
More Dicks the musical.
It's not good. It's not very good right now, but she's gone, and then literally the few hours later, like 12 hours later, they announced, hey, Jenna Ortega is also gone as well. So there's no more female stars in the new woke Scream franchise. Now the media tried to spin this by saying that, oh no, well, she was already leaving several months ago, we just made the announcement today. I have a very, very hard time believing this because Jenna Ortega, whether we like her or not, and I certainly do not, she has become like one of the biggest stars in Hollywood over the last, I guess, few months to a year or so because of Wednesday, because of her roles in the Scream movies. And if she was leaving the Scream franchise, which she's pretty much like one of the number 2 star in the franchise right now, and this decision was made several months ago, there would have been some kind of report about this. It wouldn't have happened less than 12 hours after they announced that they fired the lead star of the movie, and all of a sudden she just so happens to be out too. Now, I think what's happening here is that they're finding some kind of way to, I guess, save face with this whole thing because Jenna Ortega probably has the exact same political opinion as Melissa, who just got fired for having her political opinion about Israel and Palestine before this movie went down. But Jenna Ortega is now dropped out officially out of Scream 7 due to her Wednesday season 2 shooting schedule, which is very, very, very hard to believe. Yeah, it says she was fired based on her social media posts. They wanted to make sure that we knew that Ortega's departure was not influenced by Melissa's firing, and that she was in the works months ago before the SAG and actor strife began. So, they really want you to know that this had nothing to do with firing the star like 12 hours beforehand. It's had everything to do with Wednesday. Whether you believe it or not, it's on you. So, this whole woke Scream franchise is dead. It's so bad now they're talking about bringing back Neve Campbell, who they just lowballed last year. She was in negotiations to do Scream 6, but then they're like, yeah, we don't want to pay you what you deserve because we got all these other Hispanic stars leading this thing now, so we don't really need you anymore. So she said, okay, they don't want to pay me what I'm worth, so I'm gone from this whole thing. And now here we are, like 18 months later, and now they're gonna be like, hey, Nev, you want to come back to the franchise because we just lost those other two chicks. So I mean, they have nobody else. They killed off David Arquette's character. All the other original characters are dead. The only two people they have left is Courtney Cox's character, and she looks terrible. And bringing back Neve Campbell is literally like their only option if they want to keep this thing going. Which means that, you know what, you should probably just let it die at this point. That's probably your best option. But Rick, what is your thoughts on the Scream franchise literally throwing up on itself and shitting in bed and dying?
Well, as someone who probably did not see anything past Scream 2, I have no idea who either of these characters are. Though, if the people, if they decide to actually go ahead with this, they would be smart if they had the Melissa Barrera character.
Uh,
Let's have her get blown up by Hamas. That would be a nice twist. Yeah, as she's out there screaming
They
about,
can't. They can't do that though because Hamas is the good guys. We
yeah,
need to support Palestine no matter what.
no, no, no. What would be funny is if she were to go, if the movie starts out with her holding up one of those queers for Palestine as she's walking through Gaza, and then
Hmm.
Hamas sees her little flag, her little rainbow flag, and just blows her up.
I
Goes to
mean,
get
they
someone
could
to
have they
wig.
can have her beaten and raped and thrown in the back of a car, but that'd be a little too on the nose if they were to do that one. But I
No,
mean,
actually, now that both of them, since I understand they were playing sisters, they
yep.
should have both of them go out there with like pride flags and through Gaza City, and saying trans liberation until with Palestinian liberation, and then some Hamas guy goes and just mows them all down and
No,
beheads
they should have a new Ghostface, and before Ghostface has an opportunity to kill him, somebody yells Allahu Akbar, and then the whole place blows up, and then that's how
them.
you start up. The scream set. It's
Yeah,
just literally Islamic terrorist attack kills everyone. There you
yeah,
go.
and then we discover that that one of them had an illegitimate child as well, because it worked for the first one, you know,
Hmm.
that she gave birth secretly, and suddenly, or their niece, or they could find that they have another, they have a cousin, because all Mexicans have dozens of cousins everywhere. So we could find a cousin, and then just have her or him, or someone spun off into their own series. Really, I think this is actually good for them. They can just end the franchise, and just say, you know what, we figured finally that this story has run its course, and there's no point in having any more of these Scream movies. So let's just take the opportunity to end it, just like they should end the MCU. They should just end it. You're muted, by the way, Jacob.
Like I said, this whole thing, like, it's so dumb. Like they brought back Scream. They killed off all the old people. It's like, okay, we're gonna move forward with more diversity friendly counterparts to all your favorite characters. The storyline is just absolutely stupid. Like I said, where the hell did this bastard child of Billy Loomis come from, and how come we've never heard of him or heard of her in the course of like four prior movies before this whole thing came out? Then it's like, the story is dumb, the effects are dumb, even like the characters are like straight up stupid. Like, I know this might be a spoiler for some people who haven't seen the last Scream movie, but we find out that the killers of the Scream 6 was the family of her boyfriend from Scream 5. Now, somehow she had no idea that. I guess she's, even though that they were boyfriend and girlfriend, she never met any of her parents or any of his sister, because her sister, the killer's sister, is like her roommate at the beginning of the movie, right? And they had no idea who each other was at the beginning of that. She goes to her father, his father, who is like a cop in New York, had no idea who he was. So it's like, okay, so you were dating this dude for God knows how long, and everyone made it seem like you guys were really close in the fifth film. But then apparently, when his entire family comes to kill you in the sixth film, you had no idea who any of these people were, and that's kind of the entire setup in the movie. You just had no idea who any of these people were. It's like,
Look. If in this universe, you don't have to know anything about anyone else. Think
yeah,
about it. We didn't know that was it Billy Loomis, was stripping some poor Mexican out there, and
hmm
knocked her up.
apparently there was a weekend in Tijuana that we never heard about, and all of a sudden,
Hey, it can happen. I mean, Juarez is not exactly family friendly.
hmm
So so why can't she not be aware of who her boyfriend's family is either? Because nope, you see, what do I always say, Jacob? Something will happen if the plot requires it to. It doesn't have to make any sense in our world or even in the film's world. So long as it moves the story forward, a series of events will happen. Here, you had to require the characters to not be aware of the family. So to get the killers and to get that shocking twist. So of course you're going to it doesn't make any sense, but that's because we're actually thinking through this.
hmm
The filmmakers don't have to think because most of their audience will gladly accept anything thrown at them. They don't have to think. They just let the movie wash over them, and they're not there for plot. They're not there for logic. They're there for killings. So as long as you get the killings, then they're satisfied. They don't have to
yeah.
worry about story or continuity. So long as they get the killings, that's what they want. And now that there's not going to be, or there will be, if there is a Scream 7, right? Are we on the seventh now?
Yeah, like I said, they were supposed to be working on Scream 7, but now they have to scrap whatever plans they had for the movie because their two main stars isn't going to be in it. So,
I'm telling you, what they should really do is just get a couple of lookalikes, put them in wigs, and send them over to Palestine or the Gaza Strip, and get them blown up. And that way they'll be satisfied. They will have died for Palestine. And these two actresses can say, "My characters died to liberate a people who were beheading babies," because that's what we support. There you go. Problem
yeah, man.
solved.
And like I said, Banana Rad put it perfectly here. Like, this is their own fault, right? You hired a bunch of dumb wokies to be in a dumb woke movie and have a dumb woke franchise, and it's your own dumb wokey stupid opinion that caused infighting, and now you have to punish your own stupid idiots, and now your whole franchise is dead in the water. Like, you have nothing now. Your only hope of saving this franchise is to go back to the near 50-year-old woman you lowballed literally 18 months ago. It's
But
like,
I would just said, Sydney, if she's these years, I would have just said, honey, just give in, like just stand out there and killed, because you can't get rid of all these killers. It's almost
you know what?
it's almost a joke.
If I'm Nev Campbell, I go to, what is it, Paramount. I'd be like, yeah, remember that price that you said no to 18 months ago? Yeah, that price just doubled. I don't want to.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe they can. Who knows? Maybe they can revive Drew Barrymore and Jada Pinkett Smith. It's not like either of them are all that busy, and just have them come
bring
back.
bring Rose McGowan back from the dead. She's still around. I
Yeah,
mean, Rebecca Gayheart, her character never died in the second one, so just bring her back and be the new figure.
what she could do. Oh, here's my plot. Nev Campbell's character, Sydney, she falls into this multiverse, this alternate universe where all the people that were killed have come back. But now someone is targeting them, and now they're going to start, or maybe they are all going to join forces to find the ultimate ghost face. So you see,
And then Black Widow's there for some reason because she's now in this multiverse now. So we're going to find some way to turn this into a Marvel movie. I'm positive.
and we're going to get Miles Morales to pop in as the greatest
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man in human history, so we could tie it in.
It's so dumb, but yeah, like I said, I don't feel bad for them at all. They caused this. This is their own fault. So that's all I got to say there. You
Well,
reap what you sow.
as I said when we covered this, think before you post. That's my
Mm-hmm.
that's my final thought.
Well, before we get started with the film here, I'm going to play a little video here. So, once again, a reminder for all you guys joining us on our YouTube right now, this is the time to switch over to Twitch, to our Rumble account. So the Twitch link is already in the chat right now. If you want to jump over there or jump over to our Rumble account, we have the link on there too. We'll be back in about 3 minutes to watch the movie here on those two accounts. So join us over there on YouTube. We'll be checking out here in a second. But before we get completely out of the way here, I did want to play this old video here from 1993 MTV Beach House because we did bring it up earlier. And I figured, well, since this movie is 1993, why not go back to 1993 to see what MTV used to be like 30 years ago? So here you go, fellow kids. You can enjoy this one while you hop over to Rumble and hop over to Twitch. We'll see you guys here in just a quick second. So here we go.
It's chilling at the beach house, all that.